So this is where dignity goes to die.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 canceled DreamWorks projects we never got to see.
I pull one tiny thread and their whole world unravels into chaos. Glorious chaos.
For this list, we'll be looking at films that were in development at this animation studio, but ultimately never made it to the screen as intended. Which canceled DreamWorks project do you want to see resurrected? Let us know in the comments. Number 10. Squashed sequels. In the early 90s, Pacific Data Images pitched a film about robotic insect-like creatures called bugs, Lights Out. Upon teaming up with DreamWorks, PDI instead produced Ants, which was intended to get a direct-to-video sequel at one point.
Yes, I understand. I dropped the ball.
That's just one of the many sequels that DreamWorks scrapped. The Road to El Dorado was seen as a potential franchise until it underperformed financially.
Hey, Jill, what are they doing?
They're sending it to Shibaga, the spirit world.
Hopes for a Rise of the Guardians sequel were also dashed by disappointing box office numbers. Even films that did spawn franchises had their limits. Madagascar 4 was announced only to be removed from DreamWorks' schedule with its future in limbo. Plans for Shrek 5 were also dropped amid the fourth movie's production, but a return to Far, Far Away is appearing increasingly likely.
Where are we headed anyways?
Off to find new adventures and to see some old friends.
Number 9. Crood Awakening. Aardman initially had a 5-picture deal with DreamWorks, but only 3 were produced.
Ladies, please, let's not lose our heads.
Lose our heads?
Before parting ways, Aardman had plans to develop a fresh spin on The Tortoise and the Hare for DreamWorks. Also in the works was a Cave People comedy written by John Cleese and Kirk D'Amico, who previously collaborated on an unproduced adaptation of Roald Dahl's The Twits. The Aardman-DreamWorks collaboration was to be entitled Crood Awakening. While that film went unevolved, there's a reason why it sounds so familiar. DreamWorks reworked the project into a CG animated feature you might have heard of, The Croods.
How about a story? Eep loves those.
That's a good idea. How about a story, huh?
Oh yeah, tell us a story.
D'Amico remained on as a co-writer and co-director, teaming with Chris Sanders. Aardman, meanwhile, would produce a stop-motion Stone Age comedy called Early Man.
I got him! No, I haven't! Great! Champion!
Number 8. Shelved book adaptations.
So I guess we'll share?
Reddit.
All mine then. Wow.
For every Shrek, there's a book that DreamWorks leaves on the shelf, even when major talent is involved. Barry Sonnenfeld was attached to bring his quirky edge to adaptations of The Pig Scrolls and Gil's All Fright Diner.
Put that book down, Gordon. You don't know what it can do. It's not just literature.
Jason Reitman was set to make the leap to animation with an adaptation of The Adventures of Beagle, the Unimaginary Friend. Danny Boyle was involved in Truckers, which would have been based on the Gnome trilogy. Noah Baumbach reportedly worked on the screenplay for a Flawed Dogs adaptation. From children's books like Punk Farm to junior novels like Alcatraz vs. the Evil Librarians, to comics like Maintenance, to Chinese novels like The Tibet Code, to the Rumblewick series, DreamWorks has lost a lot of projects in adaptation. Number 7. Alma. In 2009, former Pixar animator Rodrigo Blas released a CG short entitled Alma, in which a little girl stumbles upon a doll who looks exactly like herself. Think Toy Story meets The Twilight Zone.
Am I really that fat?
A year later, it was announced that Blas would direct a feature adaptation of the short for DreamWorks. The project assembled several other established creative figures.
Geronimo! You'd think with all my video game experience, I'd be feeling more prepared.
Megan Hawley of the indie dramedy Sunshine Cleaning was slated to write the screenplay. Guillermo del Toro would not only serve as an executive producer, but work on the story and visuals too. Over a decade later, the project remains as motionless as a doll. Blas and Del Toro have since collaborated on multiple DreamWorks projects, though, winning a Daytime Emmy for Troll Hunters.
Never forget that fear is but the precursor to valor. That to strive and triumph in the face of fear is what it means to be a hero.
Number 6. Spooky Jack. Like Alma, Spooky Jack seemed to have all the makings of a creepy classic. First announced in 2017, this original concept would have been a joint effort between DreamWorks and Blumhouse Productions.
The job I have for you is top secret. It requires craft, cunning, mischief.
With Jason Blum himself as an executive producer, Spooky Jack appeared to be DreamWorks' foray into straight-up horror. The premise was crawling with potential as well, following 3 siblings who move into an unsettling house where supposedly fictional creatures are proven to be quite real.
If those are the teeth, and that's the tongue, then that must be the uvula. Oh. So it's a girl house.
The lineup would have included leprechauns, Bigfoot, and a boogeyman with a shy side. Although concept art for the film was unveiled, its spot on the release schedule was substituted with the bad guys.
Yeah, we may be bad, but we're so good at it.
With no further reports, Spooky Jack has seemingly vanished into the darkness. Number 5. The Wanderer. Before going all in on CG, DreamWorks produced 3 theatrical traditionally drawn features: The Prince of Egypt, The Road to El Dorado, and Sinbad. We almost got a 4th entitled The Wanderer, which was announced in 1998.
Come on, Tulio. We'll follow that trail.
What trail?
The trail that we blaze.
With a voice cast featuring Ellen Greene and James Gandolfini, the story followed a wild bear who crosses paths with a pack of circus bears. The directing team consisted of Paul and Gaëtan Brizzi, who worked on various Disney films, and Simon Wells, who co-directed Prince of Egypt.
Hey, Ramesses! How'd you like your face carved on a wall? Someday, yes!
The project was left in indefinite hibernation when Wells departed to direct 2002's The Time Machine. If that wasn't enough to kill the project, diminishing returns from traditionally animated features did. Some concept art aside, The Wanderer was left without a trace.
This has got to be a little embarrassing for you, Eris.
Don't push your luck, Sinbad. You're cute, but not that cute.
Number 4. Larrikins. In development as far back as 2013, Larrikins would have centered on a bilby named Perry leaving his burrow and setting off on an Australian road trip. The cast assembled several Australian natives, including Hugh Jackman, Margot Robbie, and Rose Byrne. Larrikins would have been among DreamWorks' rare musicals with songs and a score by Tim Minchin, who was to also direct with Chris Miller. According to Minchin, he worked on Larrikins for 4 years when a change of management pulled the plug.
Now all I have left is to hope that a dingo will sneak in and rip off your fat bitching head.
Although much talent was squandered, the Australian backdrop and some characters were recycled for the 2018 short Bilby, which premiered at NC and was shortlisted for Oscar consideration. It still wasn't the happiest ending for people like Minchin, but at least something came from Larrikins.
Your love for them grows the closer to dead they look.
Number 3. Monkeys of Mumbai. From one cancelled musical to another, this DreamWorks film drew inspiration from the Sanskrit epic Ramayana.
The eldest, Ram, and his beautiful wife Sita lived happily along with the other prince brothers and their wives. But one of King Dashrath's wives was jealous of Ram.
The story revolved around 2 orphaned monkeys who rise up as scrappy heroes to stop a demon bent on world domination. With a Bollywood sound, Stephen Schwartz and A.R. Rahman teamed up to write the songs.
Dramatic James Bond stuff.
Kevin Lima of A Goofy Movie, Tarzan, and Enchanted was enlisted to direct, with a cast including Leah Michele and Aaron Taylor-Johnson. Several years after its announcement, Lima confirmed that Monkeys of Mumbai had been cancelled, despite having all the songs completed. Although Lima hoped that the project might find life elsewhere, the decision to write it off for tax purposes made Monkeys of Mumbai too expensive for another studio to acquire.
They're always annoying us by trespassing, interrupting our parties, and ripping our limbs off.
Yes, sounds good.
Number 2. BOO, Bureau of Otherworldly Operations. In an alternate reality, Tony Leondis would have directed this supernatural comedy instead of the infamous Emoji Movie.
Sorry, everybody. That was not what I meant to do.
He developed the film's premise, which possessed echoes of Ghostbusters. In a twist, though, the agency protecting humans from haunting entities are actually ghosts themselves.
So where is he? I can't see him. I can only hear him.
I'm right here.
That doesn't help, Sam.
Seth Rogen, Melissa McCarthy, and Jennifer Coolidge were just some of the names attached to BOO, which was slated to release in 2015. DreamWorks pulled BOO to steer clear of Pixar's Inside Out, and amid several box office flops, never got around to locking down a new release date.
I have a super important job just for you. Really? Mm-hmm. Follow me.
What are you doing?
And there. Perfect.
With Leondis moving on, BOO appeared dead as a doornail, although an anonymous member of the crew claims that it was, quote, pretty much towards the end of production. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Rockumentary, a parody of the Beatles with penguins that later inspired Madagascar.
You didn't see anything, right?
Yes, sir.
Tusker, a Great Escape-esque story about elephants in Southeast Asia.
I've never felt so alive!
Lidsville, an adaptation of the TV series with songs by Alan Menken and Glenn Slater.
Lidsville is a living and friend. If you get a chance to go there, you'll be glad you did. Cause everybody who goes to Lidsville really flips his lid.
How's that for a topper?
Interworld. Neil Gaiman and Michael Reeves got it written as a book, but a movie never moved forward.
I get puzzled and lost when people start asking me questions about what they should be writing for the market or whatever. There is no market.
Imaginary Enemies, a live-action animated hybrid about imaginary friends rebelling.
She's escaping the portal!
What's going on?
It's Melissa!
Your imaginary friend?
Am I seriously the only one who didn't realize that?
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Me and My Shadow. Me and My Shadow would have returned DreamWorks to traditional animation. Well, kind of, as the film was intended to combine traditional techniques with CGI.
Now, my pets. Is this any way to treat a guest?
This merging of styles sounded well suited for the story about the boring Stanley Grubb, whose world is turned upside down by the mischievous Shadow Stan. Mark Dindal of The Emperor's New Groove was supposed to direct early in development. After Jeffrey Katzenberg supposedly fell asleep during a screening, though, he didn't think it could gross $200 million.
No! You threw off my groove!
I'm sorry, but you've thrown off the Emperor's groove.
Keep in mind, Katzenberg also called Part of Your World boring, but in any case, Edgar Wright was later recruited to take the film in a new direction. After multiple rewrites and leadership changes, though, this scrapped project casts a shadow of squandered possibilities.
I find the very idea of 9 lives absurd, and you didn't value any of them.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.